So we want New Testament base the bottom. Is that true? Chafam base. Yeah, Chafam base. So what the Gemara subject was talking about Chayv Lavin. I didn't highlight anything. I just was working on the chart, and I had an old chart that we'll see for today's Gemara. Hope that it's not gonna. Hope I will make it more complicated than it is. But it's hard to follow the Gemara without some kind of a diagram. So the Gemara is in the middle of Chayv Lavin. It said in the Mishnah that Chayv Lavin, if the relation from the Yavam to the Yevama is Isser Lav but not Koris, so it says Chalitza without Yibum. And the Gemara started asking that want to say if it would be a regular losas, regular negative commandment, so then the clause say the losas, and he should. Amal Kohen Gadol, for instance, the Gemara said Amal Kohen Gadol if it's nesu, and then the Gemara said asay losas, but the rest of them there should only be a regular lav. So that was the most kasha. How come you don't say asay the losas? And the Gemara came out with the answer that it's only xera. Be Rishona to be a shnia, that then the first time that they have relations, they should be mutter because that's the mitzvah of Yibam. But the xer is that they might continue, and usually Yavam is allowed to continue. That's regular marriage, and they could stay married. But here they wouldn't be allowed to because there's a lo saseh, and there's no aseh kicking in to counter it. Only the first time that they have relations. So therefore, they said they shouldn't do Yibam, just do chalitza. And then the Gemara towards the end. The Gemara brought in, we have to go over this again because the Gemara is going to bring it in further. The Gemara brings that maybe the whole kasha is not a kasha, and that's what Rav or Ravashi thought, that lav milsi dami, the kasha is not a kasha in the first place because when you say asay the chalosa, say only if it's impossible to get around it. But if you could accomplish both of them, so then we don't say that say overrides the lo saseh. And here, Rish Lakish, that was Rish Lakish's rule, and the Gemara says that over here also, since it's possible to do chalitza, there is a way out. You won't have to transgress the positive commandment of Yibum because you could do chalitza. So therefore, you don't say asay the cholos asay, and the whole kash is off. But the Gemara ended off with a few words that it's not, and said tiyufta that it's not true because it says in the Bryce and Baal Lukanu that that's talking about Chayv Elav and the Kushafcha, etc. Over there it says that if they did have a bia, they had relations, so then it doesn't work. And here again, the more understands that if you say that according to the Torah laws of Asay the Cholosas, there's no reason why you should override. So there's no din of Yibum. The Gemara never meant you should do Yibum in such. The Torah never meant you should do Yibum in such a case, and therefore it shouldn't work. Even post facto, even if they had relations, it shouldn't be a kinyan. So the Gemara rejected the last terrace and went back to the terrace of Rava that is Xer be Rishano to be a shnia. The two dots over here doesn't belong. It's a mistake to have the two dots because it's still in the middle of the subject. We stopped over here because time was over, but really the Gemara continues. The Gemara is still continuing with the subject of Chayv Lavin that had relations. Like we just said a second ago in Baal Lukanu, that if they did, even though they shouldn't do Yibum, but if they did, so it works. And here it says, brings down Amar Ram, that have machlokas about this point. Itmar Bias Kohen Gadol Malmana. The Kohen Gadol, his brother died, and now the widow is supposed to do Yibum, but is allowed. The Kohen Gadol is not allowed to have relations with a widow. So what if they did? He shouldn't have. It says Paulette says he's supposed to have chalitza and not Yibum, but they did have relations. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar machlokas between these two Amarim. Chadamar. It's another way of saying does it work or not? Does it take effect? If they did, they shouldn't have. But if they did, does it even work? So the way they talked about it was Poteres Sarasa. If the Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol's brother had two wives, and the question is about the Kohen Gadol had relations, did Yibum to the Almana? Does that discharge? Does that part the co-wife? Means was Yibum accomplished? Did he do? If you know he shouldn't have, he should have taken the tzari. He shouldn't have taken the Almana. No, either one. I'm sorry. Both of them are Almanas. That's okay. Anyway, both. But did he accomplish anything? Because you have to do chalitza to the other one. So it says that the machlokes, one says Eina Poter Sarah, so that it's as if he did nothing, and therefore the tzara still is obligated. She needs chalitza like she did before. The Chadam Poter Sarah said that even though he shouldn't have, the Kohen Gadol should not have had relations with the Almana, but it works. It means it takes effect, and the tzara could go free. The Gemara explains. If the marriage to the deceased brother was Nisuin Mamish, and now she's not a virgin anymore. They consummated the marriage and she's not anymore a virgin. So then it's going to be a say and a losa say. We said yesterday that the Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry a widow on two accounts. One is that Almana lo yikach, he should not take it's a negative commandment. Also says he should take a virgin. That's a positive commandment. So if she already had Nisuin, so she's not a virgin anymore, so then surely there's no mitzvah of Yibum. The lo patra, and as we said, whenever the Torah never says, doesn't say to do Yibum in such a case, so then if he did it, it doesn't take effect because there's no such mitzvah. So everyone would agree that it doesn't take effect if he had relations with Almanim and Anasuin. Keep pligi Almanim and Erisin, so she still is a virgin, so it's only a negative commandment. Do not take a widow. She's called a widow, but she's also a virgin. So over there it's a lo saseh, aseh docha lo saseh, and that would be the question since on the Torah law, aseh docha lo saseh, is it considered that the Torah says you should do yibum? Mandama poteres, aseh aseh v'docha lo saseh. The one who says that it works is because the aseh overrides the lo saseh, and on the Torah law, it was a good yibum. Maybe the one would have said not to do it, but on the Raisa, he could do it, so therefore she's in the parsha of Yibum, and it takes effect. Mandama ena poteres, because lo aseh aseh v'docha is lo saseh, chemlev sheva chalitza. Like there was before in the name of Rosh Lakish, whenever you could accomplish both, you don't have to necessarily clash the aseh and the lo saseh. You could accomplish both. So here also the Gemara thinks you could accomplish both. If the only would be a din of Yibum and no possibility of chalitza to get out of that, so then you're right. I say the lo saseh. The Torah says to do Yibum. The Torah on the other hand says that almana should marry a Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol should marry an almana. But here, since there's a way out, so it's not called. The Torah doesn't call for Yibum in this case. The Torah says don't do Yibum, and therefore, even if he did it, it doesn't take effect. So the issue that we had yesterday, the Gemara really rejected this at the end because in Baal Lukanu. And now temporarily the Gemara forgot about it, so to speak. He brings down the Yeruchna Beloza that they forgot about this brisa that says in Baal Lukanu. So the Gemara brings it up and says, we had a brisa that says that it does work. Meisvei in Baal Lukanu. So the brisa says that if they did have relations, Chai Ve'lav and had relations, over there it's talking about a Krushavcha, whatever the case would be, that is allowed to have relations, and it says that if they did, so it does take effect. So you see that you don't say that Yibum is considered Efshal L'Kaim Shneim because you could have done Chalitza for whatever reason, or that the Gemara is going to explain now. But that's not a reason to say that there's no mitzvah. You see that there is a mitzvah. It's only, as we said before, we came out yesterday, the only reason that you don't tell them to do it is because they might stay on for the Bia Shnia. They got married, they had one relation, and they might continue, and they're not supposed to. Usually Yibum could continue. He's his wife from now on, and we said that it needs a get. If they want to stop it, they need a get and not chalitza. But it's a regular marriage. But that's only by a marriage Yibum, which is mutter. But over here, it's only the first time it's mutter because I say the chalos. I say after that it's asur. So the Gemara comes out like that tifta, that it's really true that a Chai Ve'Lavin with the Raisa are supposed to do Yibum because I say the chalos. I say only the case where we said it's asay ve'los asay, but otherwise the regular asay is doch halos asay, and they with the Raisa should have Yibum one time and then give a get. But since they might continue and be on with each other, so then they said don't do it even the first time, does do chalitza. Now the Gemara says, so then the whole klal is wrong. Lemet yavet yufta, namit yufta the Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish is the one who said that asay do chalosa asay only if you can't accomplish both. What if you could satisfy both? So then you don't say that asay overrides. That was Rish Lakish's general rule. And since over here you see that it's not called, that it is called in the parsha of Yibum, even though you could accomplish it with chalitza. So l'chora you see that Rish Lakish is wrong, that even if you could be Mekayim Shneim, even if you could accomplish both Asay and the Los Asay, still we say that Asay is the Chalos Asay. And L'chor Rish Lakish, no, Ki Amina no Heichad Mekayim Mitzvah. Aval Hacha Chalitza B'Makom Yibum Lav Mitzvah. That it isn't so simple to say that there's another way out. Instead of doing Yibum, do Chalitza. No, Yibum was much more chashuv than Chalitza. Yibum was when he's really going to uphold your brother's house, and Chalitza is just like a divorce, and they're stopping it. It's a way to free her to marry somebody else, but it's not equal to do Yibum. Yibum was much better. We'll talk about eventually. We're going to talk about that nowadays. We don't do Yibum. That's because they're not doing it l'shem shamayim. But inherently, the Yibum is better than Chalitza. Yibum is what the Torah really wants. So even though Rish Lakish's rule is right that if you could accomplish both of them, so don't override the Lo Saseh. Asay overrides the Lo Saseh if it's impossible to satisfy both of them. If you could satisfy both of them, so then don't override. But here, Chalitza is not considered an option. Yibum is much better than Chalitza. So we don't say, since you can do Chalitza, don't do Yibum. Yibum is much better. So therefore, this is considered Iyaf Shalakayim Shneim. You can't do both of them. And therefore, I say, is the Chalos Asay? And that's the end of the sugya. we just sum it up. It's very simple. After the end of the whole thing, after all the dust settles, it's very simple. The Mishnah says Chai Ve'Lavin is Chalitza, not Yibum. The kasha was why. If it's only Chai Ve'Lavin, so Asay Dechol Lo Saseh, and the Torah should allow it. The answer is you're right. The Torah does allow it, but it only allows it only one cohabitation, only one time. But after that, they should have to get divorced. Then there's Xer. They might stay on. They might think that it's mutter. Once the Torah permitted it, so you're allowed to continue. And it's not true, only the first time. After that, it's not a mitzvah anymore. So therefore, they do chalitza, not yibum. But on the Torah level, it is considered a yibum. And if they did it, if they transgressed, they didn't listen to the Rabbanan, and they did do yibum, so it does take effect. And it is a good yibum.
Why shouldn't it be permitted until she becomes pregnant?
I don't know the answer, but it seems to say only Bia Rishona. It seems to say Bia Rishona. And maybe that's what the Gemara means. Maybe when it says Bia Rishona, it means till she becomes pregnant. I don't think so, because he did. I think the Gemara always says Bia Rishona. Maybe further on in the Masechta we'll see that. But even according to what you're saying, that until she becomes pregnant, so that's what it means. That he'll stay with her even after she becomes pregnant, and that surely would be also. But I think according to the words of the Gemara, it sounds like Bia Rishona only. Maybe that needs explanation.
Maybe Bia Rishona, then you have to wait to see if it's accomplished.
Right. It could. So the possibility, Rav is saying that maybe the Bia Rishona means until she becomes pregnant, maybe, but I think not. I didn't look into it. The Gemara, words of the Gemara says Bia Rishona, and if it's a kasha, it's a kasha. Why is the Torah satisfied with that? Maybe he gave a chance. If Hashem wants her to become pregnant, she should become pregnant. She could. Of course, it has to be at a time that she could become pregnant. But that's the end of the Gemara. Chai Ve'Lavin with the rice is supposed to do yibum one time, one bia. And the Rabbanan said, don't do it because they might continue to be a shniya.
What happened to the status of the Kohen Gadol?
So that the Gemara says that since Kohen Gadol to marry the widow is asay vilos asay, as it says over there, the asay does not override a lo asay and an asay. So over there, it's really not a yibum at all. And even if they did it, it's not going to take effect.
Not even allowed to do a chalitza?
No, chalitza, yes. Chalitza should do. Chalitza does do. But when the Gemara said over here that it takes effect, the maskana is going to be that by almana, when it's going to be asay v'lo asay, so then it doesn't override, and then there's no parsha of yibum, and even b'diavad it wouldn't work. But other chai v'lav, that it's only asay v'lo asay, so it does override. But b'rabbanan don't override it because gzera to be a shniya. And then it's again. That was all about what we call Issa Kedusha, which means the Oraisa. It's the Oraisa, it's a lav. The first mission in the beginning of the Masechta was about Chai Ve'Krisos. Now we spoke about, in the second paragraph, we spoke about Chai Ve'Lavin. And over there, Chol says V'lomas Yamos. The first one, Chai Ve'Krisos, is no chalitza even. The whole thing is out. But Chai Ve'Lavin, with the Oraisa, say the Chalosa, say with Rabbanan not to, because he might continue to be a Shniya, and therefore do chalitza. And now we go on to the next Gemara, which is a new Sugya Mamish, and it talks about Shniyos. The Mishnah also said it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. The Gemara says shnios, which means Rabbanan. That is only Rabbanan standing in front of them, but the rice is supposed to get. They're no to get married, and surely you have to do chalitza. And no yibum, only midrabbanan. Rabbanan say don't do yibum, don't marry because it's an erva midrabbanan. And now the Gemara is going to go into the subject of Rabbanans. The Rabbanan added on more relationships to be considered arayas, and we're going to see us still talking about relations, all kinds of relatives, and there's a certain amount of relatives that are also on the rice level to marry. And Rabbanan added on more, and that's what the word is shnios. And today's sukkah is going to be all about shnios. Amar Rava, remember the shnios ben atar menai. First of all, easy Gemara that talks about a source from the Torah that you should make that there are such Rabbanans. So of course, since it's only a Rabbanan, it means it's not really sourced from the Torah. It's not a real drasha, because the real drasha would say that is the Raisa. So this is called a remez. It's only a hint. The Ramchal explains at the end of the Derech Hashem that a remez means that Hashem gave a small hint that the Rabbanan are going to one day do that. Or he says that maybe it's a hint to the Rabbanan that they should do it, but it's not a real drasha that you could say that the Torah says so. So this is a Rabbanan, and that's going to be called an asmachta. It's a remez. And the Gemara is going to bring a couple of remezim that there are shnios. Shnios means like secondary. It's not the primary erva, but it's going to be like a secondary, which is only on the Rabbanan. Shnios with the Sofrim. So remez l'shnios ben atom 9. Where's there a remez, a hint that there's such a thing as a rayos on a Rabbanan level? Shenema. That's a pasuk that talks about the arayas. Just get the pasuk. It says, don't do all of these, don't have all of these relations, because all of these abominations of these incest. So the people of the land of Canaan, they transgressed it, and that's why Hashem is throwing them out. So it says the word el. So the word ha'el means these, like Elah. But the Muslim Darshan say a drasha here on a remez level, that the word el means the stringent ones, the difficult ones, the hard ones, and that's going to imply that there are ones that are a bit weaker. They're also toeva, also an abomination, but it's not as bad. That's a drash. El kashos, the word el, we're going to see in a second that the word el means strong. What's a better word? Kashos, the Gemara used the word kasher, it's hard. And the Gemara is going to imply, you could infer from that there are those that are not so hard. El is kashos, since the word el means difficult, hard, so you could imply from there that there are ones that are softer. What is that going to be? That's a remiss that there are some kind of arayos that are not as severe as the primary ones, that the ones that the Torah says, and those are going to be the shnios from the very sofrim. That's going to be the rabbanans. Where do you get it all that the word el means difficult? It means hard. Where do you see that the word el means hard? Pasuk is talking about by the time of the Churban, it says he took the strong ones. He took the strong ones. And ele over there means the strong ones. So if it says here, that means the strong abominations. So that's why we could derive that there are also lighter ones. And those are the shnios. The Gemara has a point about the drasha to say that the word ha'el means kasha, that Rav Levi seems not to say that. Lema pliga, might put this in parentheses if we'd like to. Lema pliga de Rav Levi seems to argue on Rav Levi. Dam Rav Levi kasha onshen tamid esosim onshen shalavais. He said that the punishment for having faulty measures, midos doesn't mean character traits. So here midos means measuring, like a measuring cup. So if somebody has faulty measures, he tricks people, and his scales are not good, his measures are not good. So the punishment is going to be more difficult than the punishment for erva. Why? That the word that it says by arais is what we said before, this word el, and by dead measures, it says the word Eila. Rashi means the pasuk. Ki, in Midos it says, Ki to'avos Hashem. Kol osei ovel. Since it says the word Eila, so Eila, we're looking for the word Eila, like you said. We're looking for the word Eila, and it says the word Eila by Midos, which seems to be a stronger lashon than the word El. So the Gemara is taking it that the word Eila means strong, and the word El does not mean strong. So that's the Gemara's kasha now. That how come you're saying that El means strong? El doesn't mean strong. On the contrary, Rabbi Levi said that El means strong and El does not. Shezen nama behen El, by Arai it does says El, but Zen nama behen Ela, by Midos it says Ela. Ela means strong. So the Moyan says no, he doesn't mean to say that. He means El is kosher, the Ela kosher me'el. Both of them mean strong, but Ela is even stronger. So it doesn't mean to say that the El doesn't mean strong. What we said is true, that El means the stronger rise, and you could imply from there that there are those that are not so strong. There are abundance. But the word El is even stronger. That's why he says that Midos is even a stronger punishment than those of Arais.
The word Eila also means these things.
Of course. El also means, no. El also means these things. But it says Tovas El. When you learn Chumash, don't start saying Kol Tevas El means all the strong Tevas. Tevas El means these. But it's a drash. We're in the drash world. You have to go into the drash world. And El was saying means strong, and Eila means even stronger. But of course, the Pashpashat means these. El Kasha, Eila Kasha Me'el. The Gemara says, if you're saying the point is El, so the Kasha of Levi, how come Rav Levi says that the of Midos it says Eila, and by Arais it only says El? The more second line, Gabi Arais Nam Yaksiv Eila. And Rashi, the Gemara doesn't even bother telling us the pasuk. The Gemara says everybody knows that it says the word Eila by Arais also. Rashi helps us out. It says Kol Ateyavos Eila. If anybody does any of these Toyavos, it says the word Eila. So why are you saying that by Arais it only says the word El? By Midos it says Eila. By Arais also it says Eila. So it should be just as strong.
It says El and Eila.
Okay. The Gemara answers.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay, after you answer, I have a question. It's about the difference between El and Eila.
Okay. The Gemara answers Ahula Mute Midos Mikores. Over there, the reason why it says Eila, leave it to the Pashup Pshat. It's necessary to say the Pashup Pshat. Usually when it says these, it could have left out the whole word. That's why it's room for drasha to say that it means strong. But by the word Eila that it says by Rayas, it's necessary to say the Pashup Pshat that it means these, because it's saying that these are chorus, like Rashi brought on the pasuk. Whoever does these is going to be chayiv chorus, and it wants to tell you, don't think that if somebody does bad measurements, that he's going to be chayiv chorus also. These are chayiv chorus; those are not chayiv chorus. And the Gemara just ends off. What is the reason that midos is more? The punishment is greater for bad measurements than it is for arayos. By Arais, it's possible to do tshuva. Rashi points out if they didn't have a child, if they had a child that's a mamzer, the Gemara said in the Chagiga that movas lo yechaliskon, But by measurements, it's difficult to do tshuva because he doesn't know who to return to. A person has a store and he has a bad scale and he's cheated many people, and now he wants to do tshuva. He doesn't know to do tshuva to. He doesn't know who he stole from. So that's difficult. By rayas, even though the etzem avera is more stringent, but it's possible to do tshuva. But the midos, he can't do tshuva. Rashi brings down that it is advisable that he should do something, a public service, in order to try to give back to the person who he stole from. Maybe he'll benefit from the public service. He fixes the street, he fixes a street light, something that would benefit many people. Maybe he'll be able to benefit indirectly the person that he stole from. But it's not for sure. Not necessarily is he going to give back the person as much money as he stole from. So therefore, it's called lo efshe b'tshuva. And did I come over? Yes, Lev Yaakov?
I didn't quite understand why Rav Levi thought that Ela would be stronger. I thought the fact that it's like with the hay makes it like a feminine, which would be masculine, I thought would be stronger than a feminine.
I don't know what to say. I don't have an answer. Okay, that was the first drasha. We're gonna have a few drashas over here. We talked about how do you know Remez L'Shis Minato. We have one so far. Also, so far this is one. El is kosher, so it means they are rakos, and that is the Rabbanans. The Gemara goes on to say more simanim, more remozim. And that's Rabbi Dama Mayocha, Izain, V'chikeh, Tikein, Mishalim Arbei. Pasuk in Koheles talks about Koheles, Yeshlomo Melech, and it says that he made, the Pasuk Pshat is that he investigated and he made many Mishalim in order to explain things. But the Gemara is going to say at Russia that the word Izain means that he made Atakanos. The word aznaim usually means ears, but also it's the way we have the handle of a cup. That's called an ear. It looks like an ear. When you have like a teacup, they have the handle. It's not just a stick sticking out, but you have what's called an ozen akli. So Izain means he made handles. What does he made handles? He made handles to hold on to the Torah. Before that, the Torah was like a big box that didn't have any handles, so it's very hard to hold on to. It'll slip out of your hands. And Shlomo Melech made handles, and that's the Rabbanans. And that's what the Gemara is talking about, that he made shnios, that the shnios, the next level of arayis is going to be a protection. It's going to be a fence around the Isser of the Torah. The Torah said not to have certain relationships. And the Rabbanan, Shlomo Melech, he made the one who made shnios with Rabbanan, and that's going to protect the Torah law also. That is the second drasha. The third drasha, the third remez. That was Rav Yehuda. The next one, Rav Shai Yom Meyacha, Ehu, Pasuk in Mishlei, Al Tavarbo, stay, may Allah Valvar. Pasuk in Mishlei, it's talking about staying away from the evil path. So it says Ehu. And the drash, in the pshat it might mean like to be mevatel, to nullify the path of the wicked. Don't pass on it, and stay, may Allah, stay means to veer from it and pass on. But the Gemara is Rashi says the word Ehu as if it means to make it bigger. Make the Isser bigger. Expand on the Isser, and that way you're gonna be safe not to transgress. What is the mashal of Rav Shai who just said this thing of making a remez? I'm not sure why he's only talking about Rav Shai. All of them. I'm not sure why he's only referring to Rav Shai. Everybody's saying to make a gzera. So I'm not sure what he sees in Rav Shai more than the other drushes. But he says the mashal of making this takana is the adam the shamer paradise. If somebody's guarding a orchard. If somebody's going to guard it outside, he's outside the paradise, outside the orchard, he's able to watch the whole thing. Nobody's going to get in. But if he goes inside, then he's only able to watch what's in front of him. What's not in front of him, he's not going to be able to watch. So too, by arayah, stay far away in a way that you're safe and you're not going to get, nothing's going to get harmed. No arayahs are going to be transgressed. But if you're going to go up to the line, up to the curb, so then not everything is safe. But the Gemara ends off, Father Ravashi Bedusi, that Ravashi's mashal is not a good mashal. Hasam Shalafan of Miyam Mishtamer. Hachay Lav Shnios, Pagaber Guf. Over there by the mashal of the mashal is not as good as the Nimshal.
No. The pardes, you do want to see the whole pardes to protect it.
That's what we said. So stay outside. Don't go inside, because if you go inside, then you don't see the whole thing. That's what we said.
No.
Guard it from outside, don't guard it from inside. If you guard it from outside, you see the whole thing, and the whole paradise is safe. But if you go inside, you're only going to be able to protect it partially. But the Gemara says that's not a good mashal, because by the case of the paradise, at least you're able to guard it partially. But if not, if you love shnios, gufa. Here, if you're not going to make this guard, then you're going to actually transgress the rights itself, which I don't understand, because it's not going to be that he's going to transgress all of the rights. He's going to transgress some. So that's the same thing as the mashal. I'm not sure what the Gemara is saying, that he's going to get the rights gufa. That's what we meant. We meant before that when you guard it in a way, you should be able to protect the whole thing and not if you don't make the fence, then you're not able to protect the whole thing. I don't have clarity on this marshal of this whole discussion of Rashi and the Gemara, but that's the third remez of Shnios. And the fourth one now goes, Rav Kana Amar, Me'hacha, Ushmartim es mishmarti. You should guard my guarding. You should, Hashem says, watch the mishmeres. And the Gemara is darshaning, Shmartim mishmarti, asum mishmeres lo mishmarti. I made a mishmeres. Hashem said, I told you what to do. And now make a mishmeres around that. Make a guard around the guarding. So therefore, make a fence. Amalei Abayli Rav Yosef, other Raisa. If so, this drasha is going to be the Raisa. And then it's not only a remez for Shnias Rabbanan, it's going to be the Raisa Mamish. The Gemara says, the Raisa Pishu Rabbanan. It is the Raisa, but the Rabbanan are explaining it. It means you wouldn't be able to figure this out, or you wouldn't know which mishmeres to make. The Rabbanan explain to you how to make the mishmeres that the Torah says. But the Gemara says, no, then everything is the Raisa. Kol Torah Nami Pishu Rabbanan. The Torah always the Rabbanan explain this, so that's all called the Raisa. Why are you saying that it's Rabbanan? Elamid Rabbanan, across Mach the Balma, that this pasuk we said of Shmartim Mishmarti, we're not saying that it's a Torah law to make a mishmeres. We're not saying that it's a smach, the same way as other psukim. Altogether, we have 4 psukim. They're all Muslim. He's supposed to make a guarding of the Torah. The first one is by Urias Mamish, that it says by the Arayis, it says Tovas Ha'el, and we said Ha'el is Kasha, so they're also Rakos. Second one, Izain. Izain means like he made like handles to the Torah to be able to hold on to it. Over there, it's not Dafka Arayis. Over there, it's going to be all kinds of their Rabbanans. And different Arayis, not limited only to Arayis. The third one, Preyu al Tarbabo, the one says Preyu means like Rashi says means to make it big, and that way you'll be able to stay away from it. And Ushmartim es Mishmarti, also it might be a general. Rashi says that the pasuk of Ushmartim es Mishmarti can be a Rayis Ksiv. Maybe it's the last pasuk also is Dafka about a Rayis to make a guard around the Torah to be able to keep the laws by making a guard around it. To also answer more. And at the end of that Gemara, that was Remez L'Shnius Min HaTorah Menayim. We brought 4 sources. And now the rest of the Gemara today is going to talk about what are the mahim shnios. What are the more relationships that the Torah prohibited, that the Rabbanan prohibited in order to guard the Torah.
I'm sorry, what does Shatameh mean?
Stay me'olav, like the word sota. It's with a sin. Stay, like a sota. Sota is written with a sin, really. Some Rambam, he writes it with a sin, and you might think that it says hilchashota, but it's not hilchashota, it's hilchasota. Sota is with a sin. The Torah writes it with a sin. The Samach is only to know that it's not a shin, but it's really written with a sin. So stay me'olav means veer from it. The sota is called a sota because she veered from her husband. A sota is to veer. So stay me'olav. They're talking about the path of the wicked. So it says pray or tarba will make it big or nullify it and don't pass through that road of the wicked. Stay me'olav or veer from the road. The sota is veering from her husband. That's not a good thing. But here it's a bad road. So veer from the road. Go off the bad road and pass on. The rest of the Gemara now, I have a chart. The chart is an old chart, so I might have done it a little different with the color code and everything. But I'll put on the chart. The rest of the Gemara today, I'm not going to put on. I can't go back and forth the whole time because technical reasons. So I'm going to just put on the chart, and everybody who has a Gemara can read from the Gemara. If not, then just look at it by heart, and we'll try to follow along. So to get on, I think there's a chart over here. Here it is. The chart is not exactly how I would have made it nowadays, different color code and stuff, but in general. Okay, so don't think it's complicated. Only look at the red. Don't look at the blue. The blue is going to be Arayis Daraisa, and that's not our subject today. Our subject is Arayis Rabbanan, and that's in red. I would have made the Daraisa in red and the Rabbanan in orange, but it's good. Okay, so the blue, you don't have to look at the blue at all. We'll look at it once in a while, but. This is the main character. This is the character we're talking about. He's in the middle, and we're going to talk about the relationships that are usher to him. So just to get a general picture, this is, as we know, the circle is a man, and the shaitel or the mitpachar is a woman. So this is his father, and this is his mother. Good? Yeah. Simple enough. So we start. So I'm going to read along the Gemara as we go along. Tana Rabbanan, Ma'im Shnios. What are the secondary arayas to Rabbanan? Aim Imo, his mother's mother. There she is. So Midaraisa, he'd be allowed to marry her. He'd be allowed to marry his mother's mother. Midaraisa, only a mother. This woman, Imo, she's the Raisa. That's going to be Chayiv Skila. If he has relations with his mother, he's Chayiv Skila. That's a mother. But the Rabbanan added on, he's not allowed relations with his mother's mother in order to protect the Isser. There's not allowed to marry a mother. So he said, don't marry a grandmother either. Aim Imo, his mother. Aim Aviv, also his father's mother. This woman also, his father's mother also. With the rice is mutter. But Rabbanan is Asr. Also, because of his mother. Because his mother is Asr, so they answered also his maternal grandmother and also his paternal grandmother. Eishes Avi Aviv. Eishes Avi Aviv. Here's Aviv. Avi Aviv. Eishes Avi Aviv. So with the rice, it's only Asr to marry his father's wife, but his grandfather's wife would have been permissible. But they answered that also. So with Rabbanan, he's not allowed to marry Eishes Avi Aviv. And also Eishes Avi Imo, his mother's father's wife. His grandfather's wife. Also, with the rice, he'd be allowed to marry her. With the rice, it's only Asr, his father's wife. And they Asr his grandfather's wife on both sides. His father's wife and his mother's father's wife. Ve'eshes achi ha'av min ha'em. Ve'eshes achi ha'em min ha'av. This is talking about an aunt, what we'd call. Eshes achi ha'av min ha'em. So you have achi ha'av. Now, first of all, to show the deraisa, his father's brother from his father, which means they have a common father. Here it is. His brother is this man's father's brother, wife. And that's how you see they have a common father. They have a common father. Achiv min ha'av. This means that they're brothers from the common father. Eshes achi aviv min ha'av. I'm sorry, that would be the deraisa. This would be the deraisa. Because of that, we also made Rabbanans. What do we make? Eshes achi av min ha'em. If it's not a paternal brother, it's a maternal brother. This is his mother, and she had a son. So they're brothers from the common mother. So Rabbanan is also to marry her also. This one is what the Gemara says now. Eishes achi av min ha'em. The wife of his uncle. How is it an uncle? Because his father has a brother, but not a full brother, half a brother from the common mother. So they made also Shneur says not allowed to marry her either. And also on the other side, Eishes achi ha'em min ha'av. Eishes. Now really, it's only Yasser to marry. Only the rice is only Yasser, the woman who's Eishes achi aviv min ha'av. But on the mother's side, it would have been permissible. That same level here. Look on the other side, the same level. It would be Eishes achi aviv achi imo. I'm sorry, achi imo min ha'av. This is the common father over here. His mother has a brother from the common father. His wife, even though it's the same, it's a mirror effect of on the father's side, but that's with the rice, that's not us. He'd be allowed to marry his mother's brother's wife, even if it's from the common father. But Rabbanan answered it.
These are ants.
What?
These are ants.
Right. There's one we didn't talk about, means that this is the Raisa, and then Rabbanan, so far the Gemara said two Rabbanans, this one and this one. There was meaning on his father's brother from a common mother, so his wife is Asa, and his mother's brother from a common father, his wife is also Asa. But we didn't talk about one case, we didn't talk about if it will be the mother's brother from a common mother. This one we didn't talk about. We'll see that's in the Gemara. But so far the Bryce leaves it out. The next one. Here it says Kalas Bino. Here's the man. He has a son. So his wife is this man's daughter-in-law. That's Mamish Daraisa. That's Kalaso. That's also Chayiv Skila. But now we're saying Kalas Bino. His son has a daughter-in-law. So the Rabbanan, he's not allowed to marry either, not only his daughter-in-law, he's not allowed to marry his son's daughter-in-law. Also Kalas Bito, his daughter's daughter-in-law. His daughter's has a son, has a wife, so he's not allowed to marry his daughter's daughter-in-law. Good? Everything's good so far? Everybody's happy? Now we go on. Now this matrimonial coil here is his wife. Here's his wife. Here's his wife. The Brisa continues now. A person is allowed to marry, maybe a bit smaller. A person is allowed to marry his wife's father's wife. Ashes, his father-in-law's wife, this woman here. A person is allowed to marry, of course, she's not married anymore to his father-in-law, but the fact that he was once married, doesn't make it rasa. A person is allowed to marry his wife's father's wife. Not that it's his wife's mother. His wife's mother is mamish asa, that's chamoso. A person is not allowed to marry his mother-in-law, but it's not his mother-in-law. It's his father's-in-law wife, mutter. Next, ube'eshes chorgo. A chorig is a stepson. So he married a woman who has a son who is married, who had a wife. A person is allowed to marry his wife's. A chorig is a stepson, his wife's son. So eshes chorgo means the wife of his stepson. His wife has a son his wife has a son who has a wife, but now that whatever the case is, the son, whatever it is, and now he's allowed to marry her. A person is allowed to marry the wife of his stepson. But he's not allowed to marry the stepson's daughter. The Gemara is going to soon say that's even Issa Daraisa. As you see, that's in blue, it's not in the red. The red is the Rabbanans, the blue here is the Daraisa. So this is going to be his wife's granddaughter. Surely it's also to marry as Bas Benov, as Bas Pita, that it's also to marry a wife's granddaughter. But that's what we're saying over here. We'll say soon that that's the Daraisa. But the point is that he's allowed to marry his wife's stepdaughter, even though he's not allowed to marry his wife's granddaughter. Means the daughters-in-law's Asr Bas Chorgo, he wouldn't be allowed to marry that daughter of the next generation. Now the Gemara does go the Gemara or the Brisa goes over and says something. That's to show the irony of what we just said. The Chorgo, where are we holding here? 1 second, please. The Chorgo. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get there yet. We're still continuing. The Chorgo. Mutter be'ishto. Now we're going the other direction. This stepson, this man's wife's son, his stepson, is mutter to marry his wife. Means a person can marry his mother's husband's wife. He had another wife, so he'd be allowed. Besides his mother, he also had another wife, and whatever they divorced, he died, whatever. So it's mutter for a man to marry his mother's husband's wife. And also ubito. A person is allowed to marry his mother's husband's daughter. Means the parents married and the children can marry. Two parents married, each one has a child, they can marry each other. A person is allowed to marry his stepfather's daughter.
Right. Stepfather's daughter.
What happened?
He married stepfather's daughter.
Oh, yeah. They say because his mother.
Right. That's why he didn't want to do
He agreed.
He agreed. For some advice.
Now the Gemara is going back to say something we said already, and it's going to show the irony of what we said. The Eishes Chargo, we said before that Eishes Chargo is mutter. This woman over here, we said Eishes Chargo is mutter for him, a person to marry his stepson's wife. So now the Gemara is going to say that over in different words. The Eishes Chargo omeres lo ani muteres lecha ubiti asur lecha. Just to show the irony of what happens, that this woman could say to him, theoretically, it just wants to bring out the point that this woman could say to this man, I am mutter to you, but my daughter is also to you. I'm allowed to marry you. This woman is allowed to marry her husbands. I mean, they're divorced or they died, whatever, but she'd be able to marry her husband's
Stepson.
the steps again. We're going backwards. That she could say that I'm allowed to marry you. I, who am your stepson's wife, I'm allowed to marry you, but my daughter cannot marry you. I'm with it to you. So even a generation closer. So you might think the closer generation will be more usher. Here it's the irony that I'm with it to you, but my daughter is usher to you. Okay, end of the brisa. The Gemara goes on to say that in the listing a line ago, we said that Bas Chogo is Aser. His stepson's daughter is Aser, and the Gemara is asking that as the Raisa. That's Mamish, his wife's granddaughter. Surely it's Aser with the Raisa. Bas Chogo the Raisa, he dechsiv, as Bas Benov, as Bas Bita. The person says openly that when you marry a woman, you're not allowed to marry her Bas Benov or Bas Bita. So this was the Raisa. How can we say that it's in the list there of the Rabbanans? So the one says no. That is the Raisa. We didn't mean to say it's only Rabbanan. It is also with the Raisa to marry a wife's granddaughter. It just wanted to bring out the irony to say that the stepdaughter, the stepson's wife, is allowed to say that I'm mutter to you, even though my daughter is going to be usher to you. Since the Bryce is going to continue to say that I'm mutter to you, but my daughter is usher to you. Even though my daughter is usher to you, you might think that at least with Rabbanan, they should have asked the generation closer. They didn't. And therefore, the wife of the stepson is mutter, even though the next generation is usher. I just have finished. I forgot the BT Asul Lacham the Raisa, but the deal goes over Rabbanan. So therefore, Tanarei Bas Chogo. That's why it said that Bas Chogo is also not because it means to say it's only Rabbanan, it's the Raisa, but it wants to say that the generation earlier is Mutter. So it says even though the next generation is Asa with the Raisa, they didn't make Xera on the. We said Eishes Chamev. Again, this is his wife's father. That's his father-in-law. Eishes Chamev. We said Eishes Chamev is mutter. Also, we could have brought out an ironic thing over there. How come it doesn't say Ani muter eslacha? I, this woman, says to this man, I am mutter to you. Ubiti asulach, and my daughter is usher to you. The Gemara is assuming that daughter means a daughter from that man, from the father-in-law. If they have a common child, then it's going to be a chosishta. Then it would be that it'll be marrying his wife's sister. So it also could have shown the irony. You're allowed to marry me, but you're not allowed to marry my daughter. The Gemara answers, here it's only in the case where they marry where she's a daughter. That's that daughter. If it'll be a daughter from that husband, but if it will be she has her own daughter, he married a woman and she has a daughter, so then it wouldn't be us because it wouldn't be the wife's sister. So it's not an absolute. But here, when we say that Bas Chogo says that you cannot marry my daughter, it seems to be that it's across the board. Bas Chogo is always going to be us. I have to Bas Chogo Lolo Masurolo. The daughter of his stepson is always going to be Yasser. Even though I don't think it's her daughter, the point is the daughter of the stepson. So Eishes Chogo says I'm mutter, and Bas Chogo is Yasser, because it's always going to be the grandson of his wife. Okay, more or less is good. So those are the shniyos that we added on, and which ones did we do? Not everything on the chart did we do yet. But the ones that we did were more or less these generations over here on top, and also by his wife. It spoke about the ones that are going to be mutter, even though some are usher, and some are even usher with the raisa, but they didn't make Xera on his stepson's wife and on his father's-in-law wife. Now the question the Gemara continues now is about if this is continuous or not. It means when we said that something is usher, we said that let's say aim imo. Where's Imo? Here's Imo, and here's Imo, his mother's mother. But the Raisi only cannot marry his mother. But Rabbanan cannot marry his mother's mother. How about his mother's mother's mother? So this arrow, nowadays this whole thing sounds like Alta Babi, like who's going to marry anybody like that? In those generations, it wasn't so far because they got married at 12 years old, and somebody could have married a girl that's much younger than him. And therefore, to say that the mother is us or the grandmother is us, it could be that it's pretty much close in age. So even though, and the Gemara says without the shniyos, nowadays the shniyos sounds very far removed and even like ridiculous, like who's going to marry his great grandmother, these kind of things. But the Gemara says that in those days it will be like a siyag, that it wouldn't be possible to be shomer on the arayis. The arayis, all the purpose of the shnias is only because it's a protective gate against the arayis. So it seems like it was more common to have such kind of relations. The age difference wasn't so much. But anyway, the Gemara says that the next sugi is going to talk about yesh lahefsek or ein lahefsek. So in the chart, the code is supposed to be that the arrow means that it goes on forever. That means that he's not allowed to marry his mother midaraisa. He's not allowed to marry the older generations without an end. It means he can't marry his mother's mother. He can't marry his mother's mother's mother. He can't marry his mother's 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 mother. Ein lo hefsek. That's called it. These things will never stop. But now we're going to talk about those that they made the Issur Rabbanan only till a certain generation and then it stops. That's the code over here. It has a line on top. It means that it doesn't go further than that. That's like the ceiling. It doesn't go higher than that. That's the Gemara subject now. 4 lines from the bottom. There are 4 out of these Rabbanas that we made. There are 4 of them that they have a stop. It means that it doesn't go endless. It only goes to the one that we said, and it doesn't go higher. But Rav was not sure what the 4 are. He only had 3. Nakat Rav Yadei Tlas. Rav had 3 that he understood that they yesh lahefsek, that it stops, it doesn't go on. But the rest of the 4th one, he didn't know what it was. What are the ones that he didn't know? Eishes achi ha'em min ha'av. Eishes achi ha'em min ha'av. Here we have it. Is that true? This is his mother. This is her brother from a common father. And he has a wife. Eishes achi ha'em min ha'av. Yeah, I think I got it. This is it. And over here it says yesh lahefsek, that they wouldn't have asked it if it would be another generation up. It would be not a mother's brother, but it would have been a grandmother's brother from a common father. We wouldn't ask her wife. It only goes only this generation, only this much. His mother's brother from a common father, and he has a wife. So they made it also Rabbanan, but they didn't make it on a higher generation. That's one. Ve'eshes achi ha'av min ha'em. On the other side, Eshes achi, here he is, here is he. There's a person, he's him. And then his father's brother's wife from the mother. Means on the right, it's only also this one. This one is his father's brother from a common father. That's also the Raisa. And this now talking about Rabbanans. So this Rabbanan, this is his father's brother's wife, but he's only a brother from a common mother. So here also, yesh lahefsek. Here's the line over there that it says that only goes to that generation. If it's going to be a grandfather, not a father's brother, but a grandfather's brother, they didn't make it issur on that. Also, kalaso. Kalaso means his daughter-in-law, which that doesn't make sense. The Gemara is going to say right away, it doesn't make sense. Here's the man, here's his daughter-in-law, his son's daughter. So to say that ein lahefsek is not true, because we said right away that we said it openly that his son's daughter-in-law is also asa. So it couldn't have meant to say that there's hefsek, only his daughter-in-law is asa, but not the next generation. It's not true. We said openly that there's even a son's daughter-in-law, and a daughter's daughter-in-law. So that can't be true. This statement can't be true. We'll have to fix it up soon. So that was 3. So Rav had 3 cases of yesh lahefsek. Where was that? That was the mother's brother's wife from the father, and the father's brother's wife from the common mother, and also kalasa, which we don't understand yet. Zivi Mosif Afeshes Avi Imo. Zivi had a 4th one. We said they started. There was a Masorah. There were 4. The ein lahefsek. Rav only had 3. Didn't know what the 4th one is. Zivi says he knows what it is. Eshes Avi Imo. Where do we find Eshes Avi Imo? Here she is. Eshes Avi Imo. This is Imo, Avi Imo, Eshes Avi Imo. So Midarais is only also to marry his father's wife, and with Rabbanan they made a grandfather's wife, his mother's father's wife. But yesh lahefsek. It doesn't go further than that. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Did I skip something? Yeah, no. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak v'simanecha the Eloi the Rav. This is similar to remember the Machlokas case over here. So Rashi says Eloi the Rav on top of Rav. So Rashi says that the thing that Ziri is arguing about was that Rav stayed on this generation. The level of generation that we were talking about was his father's or his mother's brother, sister. That was on this generation. The one that's going, Ziri, is going a generation higher. So that's a way to remember, just as similar how to remember that Ziri was arguing about a generation above Rav. what Rav spoke about. One line up from the.
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
please?
when we say that when we say it stops at a certain generation, like the
Yes.
last one you did, where you're pointing, it doesn't have to do with her. It has to do with, in other words, that's a grandfather's wife, correct?
But a great grandfather's wife.
But a
won't be
great grandfather's wife, no, it has nothing to do with her. It has to do with the great grandfather.
Right,
Okay.
right. One line up. How come Rav doesn't agree? It seems that Rav didn't want to say that this is Ein Lo Hefsek. He didn't want to agree. Ziri said that this doesn't go further. Great grand, like Levi Yaakov pointed out, this is a grandfather's wife, and Ziri says that a great grandfather's wife will be more. I didn't want to agree to that. Rav said I only found 3. I didn't find 4, and he didn't want to agree on that. The Rav, my time will how come he didn't say that this also Yesh Lo Hefsek? This also stops. The answer is Michlef Alei ve'Eishes Avi Aviv. Eishes Avi Aviv. That's her. And his father's wife. Over there, as you see, the arrow goes up, means that there's no stop. Also, Rabbanan, the rice his own father's wife. They made Xavier Rabbanan also on his grandfather's wife. But over there, they didn't say only that generation. Over there, if it's going to be a father's wife, also it's going to be also. So they didn't want to say that the mother's father's or mother's father's father, another generation. They didn't say that here is going to be also mutter, because here they wanted to say that it's usher. The same way by a father's wife, they said it's usher for all generations. Even a father's wife is also going to be usher. So they didn't want to say that on the maternal side that it stops after one generation. How come Ziri does differentiate? Ziri is going to say that this stops and this does not stop. What's the difference? A person is more common to be on his father's side, his father's family. Is that true by us? Maybe the culture changed, but in the Gemara says that it was more common to hang around the father's family than the mother's family.
Maybe
So
I understand why. Because it used to be.
But the Nachla,
You used to live near their parents. The father
to the
lived near
father.
his parents.
Because of the
mother-
Shevet, right? Because of the Shevet.
and the Shevet also. So it's more common to be in the father's family. So a person realizes that his father's family is closer than his mother's family. So it wouldn't make a mistake just because we say that they made a Isser Rabbanan by the father's family. But we didn't make it by the mother's family to go further. We wouldn't learn out from there that also by the father's family, people would understand that this father's family is necessary to make more Gezerah. The Gemara's the Kasha on Rav. Rav said 3 that have a hefsek. One of them was Kalasa, which is right. It was said we couldn't read the Gemara. It says Rav said that Kalasa Yesh La hefsek, that the Isser of a daughter-in-law is only one generation. That's not true. That's the Gemara on the bottom line, the bottom word. Kalaso. You turn the page. Kalaso the Raisahi. The Chsiv. Eres Kalascha Lo Sigalei. How could he even listen on the Rabbanas over here? We're talking about the Isser of a daughter-in-law is the Raisa Skila. So the Gemara answers Ema Kalas Beno. So it doesn't mean his daughter-in-law. It means the daughter-in-law of his son's daughter-in-law, which is that generation which we said is only the Rabbanan. But the Gemara says, according to the way you're reading it, Rav said that Kalas Beno Yesh La Hefsek, that it's only us a son's daughter-in-law, but not a grandson's daughter-in-law. Is that so? That it's not usher? We have an arrow here. The arrow shows that it isn't going to be usher. All generations. For Kalas Beno Yesh La Hefsek, it's only usher the son's daughter-in-law, and not further generations. For Tanya Kalaso Erva Kalas Beno Shnia. The Brisa says so far it's good that a daughter-in-law is the Raisa, and a son's daughter-in-law is a Shnia. That so far that's good. The Brisa says openly that for all generations, if it's going to be not only a son's daughter-in-law, but a grandson's daughter-in-law, a great son's daughter-in-law, for all generations, it is usher. So you can't say Rav couldn't have said on this woman on Kalas Beno that Yesh La Hefsik, that it's only that one generation. Kalas Bito. On the other side of the chart, Kalas Bito means they did make an Isser Rabbanan also on the daughter and his daughter's daughter-in-law. That's true. A daughter's daughter-in-law is also with Rabbanan, but over there, Yesh La Hefsek. Here you see the difference. On the side of the son, Ein La Hefsek. It goes on for all generations, but on the side of the daughter, so another generation, not a daughter's daughter-in-law, but a granddaughter's daughter-in-law, or a grandson's, If it's through the daughter, then it's only for that first generation. Only a daughter's daughter-in-law and no more. And the one is going to prove this, that there's a difference between the son's daughter-in-law and the daughter's daughter-in-law. Rav Chisda said, I heard the following. Rav Chisda said, I heard the following statement from a big man. Who's the big man? The big man is Rabbi Ami. Rav Chisda heard from Rabbi Ami the following statement. They asked a daughter-in-law because of a daughter-in-law. but a very vague statement, very ambiguous statement. They asked a daughter-in-law because of a daughter-in-law. So before he says what the pshat is, he says, Rav Chisda said that the stargazers told me that you're going to be a malafna. Malafna usually means like a teacher. La'alef is to teach. Rashi says a chacham, you're going to be a chacham. But the word malafna can mean Talmud chacham or can mean a teacher of children. So he says, I'm not sure what I'm going to be. When I heard the statement, I wasn't sure if I'm going to be a Talmud chacham to be able to decipher this ambiguous statement. I said to myself, if I'm going to become a Talmud chacham, I'll be able to figure this out by myself. If I'm going to become a teacher of children, I'm not going to be a Talmud chacham. I'm going to ask the Rabbanan who are going to come to the cheder, to the shul. I'll ask them what the pshat in this statement is. What does it mean that a daughter-in-law is also because of a daughter-in-law? But now I see that I was able to figure it out because if Chisda did become a Talmud chacham, he didn't just become a Malamed Dardaki, he became a Talmud chacham. He was able to figure out what the statement means. What does it mean they asked the daughter-in-law because of a daughter-in-law? Now he comes to explain. The reason why they answered a daughter's daughter-in-law is because of a son's daughter-in-law. It means that really with the rice, it's only answer a son's wife. That's a daughter-in-law. And because of that, they extended it also to a son's daughter-in-law. And they also answered a daughter's daughter-in-law only because of a son's daughter-in-law. I mean, this is like a far xera already. The only reason why they asked it a daughter's daughter-in-law is because of xera, because of the son's daughter-in-law. So they didn't make it further. Now the Gemara says examples. According to Rashi's pshat, the Gemara is just going to say examples of the time that they were living, that there was a person that had a son's daughter-in-law and a daughter's daughter-in-law, which doesn't seem to be so far-fetched that they found an example, but the Gemara says a couple of examples. The daughter-in-law of the family called Bar Tzisai, that he had also a son's daughter-in-law and a daughter's daughter-in-law. Also, he had a son's daughter-in-law and a daughter's daughter-in-law. Each one's bringing a different example of their time, that there was a person that had a son's daughter-in-law and a daughter's daughter-in-law. There are many cases here that also could use explanations, but here the Gemara found 3 examples of such a case. The Gemara continues. We spoke about, when we mentioned it before, so we spoke out that this is going to be a question. 1 second, please. Thank you. We spoke about different kinds of aunts. We spoke about a father's brother's wife, which is the Raisa, if it's going to be through the father. A father's brother, but from the common father, his wife is also the Raisa. And we mentioned 2 Rabbanan so far. We said, if it will be only from a mother's side, this woman here is the Rabbanan, because it's his father's brother's wife, but only from a common mother, not from a common father. So we said this is also a Rabbanan, and also we said that this woman is also a Rabbanan. This is a mother's brother's wife, even though it's from a common father, but also was included in the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan made exam on that also. But the Raisa only this one will be Yasa, and they asked it also this one and also this one. Now the Gemara left out goes on to the next question about a mother's brother's wife from a common mother. This we didn't talk about. We didn't mention this. A mother's brother's wife. You see that? That's his mother's son's wife. Is that us or not? The Gemara starts. Did they answer this woman? She asked her, maybe she's mutter. This woman, where is she? This woman, they answered, because there's some kind of fatherhood. It means with the Raisa, this is only father's son's wife. So if you get the father with something over there, so there's room to make xera. So here it's also something with the father. It's at least father, something to do with the father's brother from a common mother, or the mother's brother from a common father. There's some kind of father over there. But over here, so similar, in those cases, you might mistake for the case of the father's brother from a common father. But this case, only mother's included. There's going to be the mother's brother from a common mother. Maybe that's too much to make xera. The more inside, that has some kind of fatherhood mixed in over there. But if there's no father over there included, so no reason to make xera. Or they made a gzera, and they also made a gzera even on a mother's brother from a common mother. Rav Safra, he grew for gzera, but not making when gzera. Rav Safra says it's not necessary to make a gzera because all these things is rabbanan already. Even this case is rabbanan. With the rice, it's only this. So it's like making a double gzera, too far. Not necessary to make such a big issue. But Rava says that's not true. Here, everything is making double rabbanans. Means it has to be explained. Usually we don't make such a far gzera, double gzera. But here we do. But first he's going to prove many cases that we did make a double gzera, and he'll explain why. And therefore it's not going to be impossible to make a gzera on this woman also. Imo, he's going to show how we did make a gzera over here. Imo, erva, means the erva the rice is a mother. Aim imo, shnia, and his mother's mother is only rabbanan. So you might say that to make anything more than that is going to be a double rabbanan. How come they said that a father's mother is asr? This is already like a double rabbanan. But the rice is only a mother. They made rabbanan a mother's mother. And then to say a father's mother is also asr, that's already a double rabbanan. Another case. First of all, before it goes to the next case, he says why? Why do we make gzera? If it's taka gzera, we shouldn't be so chomer. The time because they all have the same name. They're all called the grandmother. So they made Asa, this grandmother, Asa, that grandmother. They didn't make a difference. Even though you might say it's once removed, we didn't make the difference. Also, Eishes Aviv, Erva. What's the Erva? The Raisa Eishes Aviv, his father's wife. Eishes Aviv is a Shnia. Another generation is only Rabbanan. Because Eishes Aviv, Mishum Eishes Aviv, and they also answered on the mother's side. They said that he's not allowed to marry the mother's father's wife either. That's a double Rabbanan. Again, time of my correlate. They all call the grandfather. It doesn't differentiate the grandfather and the mother. The paternal grandfather, the maternal grandfather, they don't differentiate. Another case. Eishes achia av min ha'av erva. Eishes achia av min ha'av. That's this woman over here. Eishes achia av min ha'av. Eishes achia av min ha'im shnia. This woman is only Rabbanan. But they did make a Rabbanan on the other side also. Because of Eishes achia av min ha'av. They made a gzera on this woman because of this woman, even though it's a double rabbanan. The time of mine, they're all called uncles, aunts. So then the question still is a good question. Maybe they made it also on this aunt, his mother's brother's wife from the mother's side. Even though it comes like they say two rabbanans, there's no father over there. There's still room for a question. So therefore that's the question. Tashma, so he's going to prove that's the question in circle. That's the question at hand over here. That they answer also the mother's brother's wife from the mother's side. Tashma, the Yasser Abuda Rashila Amar, Ami b'Marava Kolcha b'Nekeva Erva, the Zacha Gazra Alishta Mishum Shniya. He said a statement which we're going to see is not across the board. It's only going to have one application. But he said anybody, if she be a woman, she'd be an erva. If she's a man, her wife is the same erva. They made an erva b'Rabbana. Anybody that relationship, if it would have been a female, would have been an erva. It's also the same with Rabbanan if it's a male's wife. They put the wife of the male as if she'd be the female. Now, the Gemara says that can't be. Don't take that klal literal. It's not going to be true at all. There's going to be only one case that is going to apply. And the Gemara goes through all the cases to show that it's not true. You can't take it as a blanket statement. Everybody that would be a woman would be usher. So if it's a man's wife also is usher with Rabbanan. It's not true. And we're going to go through many cases to show that it's not true. Klalu is not true. Let's take chamoso. A person's wife's mother, a mother-in-law. That's it. There she is. A mother-in-law is asa. If she'd be a man's wife, that means his wife's father's wife. We said it's mutter. That's what we said today. That even though a mother-in-law is asa, but a father-in-law's wife is mutter. So the klal is not true. You don't say that anybody who's a female is also asa if it's a male's wife. Not true. Case number 2. The daughter of a father-in-law is asa, but Eishes ben Cham Muteris. That is not on the list over here. But if this man, the father-in-law, would have a son who would be married to a daughter, it wouldn't be asa to marry. Chargaso erva, a person's stepdaughter, a wife's daughter is asa, but here we said that Eishes Charga Muteris. We said today that it's mutter to marry his stepson's wife. So you don't say whoever's in the keva, whoever anything which would be a woman would be usher. It's also usher if it's a man's wife. Not true. Bas Chargaso, the daughter of a stepdaughter is erva. That's mamish bas beno, bas bito. That's erva daraisa. but Eishes ben Chagam Muteris. But if this stepdaughter would have a daughter-in-law, it wouldn't be Yasser. So therefore, the statement we said that anybody that would be an Arab, she's a woman, if she's also Asam Rabbanan, if she's the wife of the man in that situation, is not true. So what did he mean to say? Father Rav Yehuda Rashila Lasuyimai. So what did he mean to say when he said this cloud, that is the case of a woman that's Asam Deraisa, and therefore they asked also the man's wife in her place. My love Lasuya Eshachiyim and Aim. The Cholsha ben Keva Erva Bezachar Gazu Ishto Mishum Shnia. He must be coming to say our case. The case we had in question about here, this mother's brother's wife from the mother. If it would have been men over here, how does it read that? That Kholsha ben Keva Erva, which is this woman over here, I guess. That means it would be his mother's sister. It will be a mother's sister from the common mother, then it would be Yasser. So too, if it's a man's wife, her brother's wife is also Yasser. Maishnahani or Maishnahani, how come Taka they made this difference? That they did Yasser over here, even though we said in many cases where they did not Yasser the female, the male's wife, as if she'd be the female. That how many marriages did you need in order to connect them? In this case, there's only one marriage. This is the marriage. The husband, the man's wife, is one marriage. Everything else is blood relations. His mother's son's wife. So that's only one marriage over there. The rest of them we spoke about that Amuter was two marriages. Let's say Chamosa, the first one. The Chamosa means a mother-in-law. So a mother-in-law is Asr, and then a father's wife is Mutter. In order to get this, the reason why this is Mutter, a person's allowed to marry his father-in-law's wife is because there are two marriages over there to make that connection. He married a wife, and then his father-in-law married a wife. That's two marriages, so that's Mutter. But if it will be only one marriage, that's the case we said over here, then it's also going to be Asr. Yashikoach. Hope everybody enjoyed, and we'll be connecting soon.
Excuse me, this was DAF 21?
This was DAF 21, and we're a couple of DAF behind.
Uh-huh.
I think today's 24, maybe. I think we're 3 DAF behind, something like that.
Okay, good.
We'll be back with Allah in a couple of minutes. I'm sorry for the overtime.
Okay, thank you.